Oh, welcome back to Cooking for Everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make corn chowder. The recipe is out of a Company's Coming for Christmas cookbook. I'll put the recipe down in the description. But for right now, we're just going to get going here. Got my ingredients here. Potatoes, onions, carrots, celery, and I've made some alterations. Can of green corn. Made some alterations in the recipe a bit. You can follow the recipe or you can follow the way I've done it. I've changed a couple things and added a couple things. So, well, I'll get started. So we're going to dice up our potatoes here. And the recipe calls for about 3 cups of potatoes. So we're going to dice those up. Not to be perfect, just nice. Just as close to equal sizes as you can get them. A little bigger or small is not going to affect the flavor, right? In this recipe, potatoes, and for any soup, there's 3 basic ingredients that you need to make a good soup. To start with and most recipes, if you see something called a mirepoix in there, it just basically means it stands for carrots, onions, and celery. Carrots, onions, and celery are your 3 basic vegetables ingredients, starters for every soup. Cream base soups, broth soups, no matter what it is. Those are your 3 basic ingredients. So like I said, there's about 3 cups of potatoes, a cup of celery, a cup of grated carrots. And this recipe calls for grated carrots. I find it kind of interesting, but I think part of the reason why they used grated carrots instead of diced is because carrots are a root vegetable. They take a little longer to cook. So if you're gonna dice everything up, you're gonna want to start with your you're gonna cook your carrots partially first before you add your onions and celery, because they're gonna take a little longer to cook, especially if you're doing a broth soup. And if you're doing a cream soup, there's 2 different methods to make it thick. A roux method, which this is a cream soup and it's going to have a roux method to it, right? Or there's a blender method, which is a lot easier without the roux. The roux is basically just flour and some sort of fat, so like butter, oil, things like that. Those are the 2 basic ingredients to make a roux. So when I make this up, I will show you, actually explain how the roux works. In this one, you can make it separately too, but this one doesn't. This one calls for, I think I went a little more than 3 cups there, but that's okay. So give me 3 cups of that. No, that's about right. So we got 3 cups of potatoes. There's our 3 cups of potatoes. We can put those aside. So I already started grating my carrots a bit. So basically, just grater. I'm using baby carrots. It's a lot easier to grate. Full carrots, just peel them and that. But this is what I got. So this is what I'm using. So I'm just kind of grate up the rest of these to make my cup. And this recipe also calls for bacon in it. So the one thing is, you don't necessarily need to use a bunch of different cutting boards. If you do it right, you always start with your vegetables first, and then you can always use the same cutting board, but you always got to make sure that your raw meat is the thing that you're cutting last. That's the last thing you always cut. So you always start with your veg, starting with potatoes, celery, onions, or carrots, celery, potatoes, So when you're doing your veg, you kind of want to cut your onion last as well, because, well, one thing, it's a high flavor, so it's gonna get into everything. The other thing is, usually it's got a strong smell, make you tear up. So when you're doing your onion, you want to do that last, so you're not all tearing up and end up cutting yourself with your knife, which probably wouldn't be a good thing. So yeah, so I'm gonna get my carrots all grated up here, and then I'll put this aside, and I'm gonna show you how to dice up the celery next. And the other thing I've altered in our recipe here is, there we go, there's our grated carrots. Put that aside. Okay, I always take the ends off the celery, just put those aside. You can save those for stock, make stock. I will see what I'm doing that. That's a very long process if you make it from scratch. So there's two alterations I've made in this recipe. I've added garlic to it, and the recipe calls for water. I'm going to use stock instead, the Campbell's vegetable stock. It's actually a really nice one. It's salt free, or no salt added, so it's not that bad. And the vegetable one, gluten, just if you look on the side, this one's actually gluten free. Not all the Campbell ones are, but their vegetable one is gluten free, if that makes a difference for you. So now we're gonna cut up and dice up our celery. That's what that's called. I had a little brain malfunction there. So yeah, so we're just gonna dice this up real quick. I'm gonna throw this in with the carrots because those are grated and they're all gonna cook nicely. So let's just dice those up. If you want to know how to dicing, I got another video on that, so I'm not gonna go too far on that. I might actually explain a little bit more about dicing onion because it's slightly different, but for now, this is what we're gonna need. So we need a cup of carrots, a cup of celery. Pretty sure the recipe said a cup of onions, but like I said, I'll put that down in the description, and you can take a look at the things. The other thing I've altered on this is the method on how to make it. I'm gonna end up using one pot where the recipe calls for two. So yeah, I'm gonna throw all my, I need a bigger bowl or another bowl. Well, anyway, I'm just gonna get my garlic minced up here. If you want to know what mincing is, I got another video on that too. So you can take a check on that one. I'm not gonna explain that one right now. I'm just gonna talk like if I can talk today, but anyway. So yeah, so we're gonna get this minced up, and like I said, this is soup takes process, but it's good. There's an option. There's a spice, cayenne, that's optional. I'm gonna put it in when I do it, but you don't have to use it if you like spicy. Well, I guess that one's gone. Oh yeah, so it's gonna be 3, not 4 instead. My table likes to make squeaky noises. Anyway. So I'm gonna throw this in with that. That's the thing. You can cook all these. These are all gonna cook around the same time. So I'm gonna put them all in one bowl. I'm probably going to end up with a half. So the onion's fairly large, so about half. It should be about a cup. So get this minced up. good. Not perfect, but good enough. Enough for what we're doing. So now I'm gonna work on my onion here. So you see this end here, it's the root end, so you want to just kind of give it a little toss, like I said. You can keep a lot of this peel stuff to make your own homemade stock, but today I'm not going to worry about that. Give that a little hack. Onions are interesting because of layers. You just kind of get started, just peel that one or two top layers off of it. And peel like top couple layers. That, oops, it's running away. It's alive on me. So we're gonna put that aside too. I'm gonna throw that in my compost later. I'm gonna give my cutting board a quick wipe down here because I got like peels and stuff on it. Let's just spray it down a little bit of vinegar just to get some of that stuff up off there. Okay, so now we're gonna, where I started that, I'm gonna cut that in half right there. I'm gonna put that guy aside. Okay, so we got two sides here. So where I cut the root, that's the back side. So we cut it in half so it doesn't roll on you. And what we're gonna do, now let's move this so maybe you can see a little bit better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our knife sideways. We're just gonna go 3/4 of the way through it. And then we're gonna go just slightly up again, do that again. And then we're gonna do that one more time. All right, so we got all these nice little slices here. Because of the layers, if you do it this way, it'll actually dice it up really nicely. So and then you take a knife and go across the top, down, just to where you've cut to. And depending on how far you go apart in your knife is how big your dices are gonna be. So there, so now got that. So now you're gonna see, now when I cut this, is all gonna fall apart into nice diced. Nice diced pieces. Yeah. So when I get to the end, I said you can save that for stock, but I'm not gonna do that. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of slice it up and finish it off. This is just one method of dicing up onions. So it's approximately about a cup. I'm going to throw that in with that there. Okay. So there's our veg. Like I said, this is all going to cook around the same amount of time, so you can put them all in together, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So, okay. So we got that. So this calls for 4 slices of bacon. Woo! It's a strong onion. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my 4 slices of bacon. Like I said, so this is the last thing I'm gonna do on here, so it's not a huge issue. Right, as long as you use your raw meat last. And yeah, using multiple cutter boards is good, and then you don't have to worry about it. But you don't have multiple cutting boards, or it's not in the budget, you always make sure that you cut your meat last. So I'm actually gonna do 2. I'm gonna show you a couple different ways to do this. So I'm gonna start with dicing it up with my knife, and then I'm gonna show you another way after that. So cut it in half, I'll slice it down this way, and do that again. Just slice through it, stack it up. Oh, pardon me, excuse me. And just dice it up like that. Okay, so this calls for like 4 pieces. So got my bowl for my bacon. Like I said, I'll show you. Like I said, you can follow the recipe in there, or you can do it this way. Like I said, I've changed a couple of things, added. That's the thing. Things about recipes. Recipes don't need to be followed exactly. They're a guideline. You can alter if you don't like something in it. You just figure out what, and try to figure out what works there. So Another handy use for these kitchen scissors, like I said, these are good ones because they come apart, they're easy to clean, right? If you're gonna grab kitchen scissors, you definitely want one of those, especially if you're gonna do something like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the scissors and dice up the bacon with the scissors. So we're just gonna cut that up, cut it into strips, like this. Yeah, this method takes a little bit longer, but if you're not comfortable with your knife skills, this is definitely a way to go. If I can get it to work. It takes some practice, but there, so there we go. So I cut those into strips, and then we're gonna take those strips and just up. Definitely one way to do it. There we go. It's been a while since I've done it this way, so just finding the right way to do it, or the best way to do it. Just gotta be careful not to cut. I'm trying to cut my fingers off here. Like I said, this is another method. It's a good way to, like I said, if you're not comfortable with some of your knife skills, it's definitely an option. But like I said, it takes a little more finesse, I think. Okay, I think you get the gist. It just does not want to. Yeah, I think you get the gist of that. So I'm going to finish off the rest of this with my knife because I find that's easier. Okay, so we got our bacon, so got all our ingredients done up, and so I'm going to be moving on to, oh yeah, we need some flour as well. That's for the rib, but I'll show you that when we're making it, when I start putting this all together. Alright, so magic of filming, we're going to shift here. Alright.